Okay, yes, that is a real rainbow right here. Kind of crazy, right? I was just in this park and started to rain. At the same time, it was very sunny. Bit of a duality there. Bit of a duality. I wonder why that was the case. Why did it start to rain while it was sunny? Sometimes it's useful to think of these things to understand the answer to the question. Sometimes it's really helpful. But other times, it's not helpful. If you are a very analytical person, you're always thinking, you're always in your mind, you might start to struggle in situations where you need to be in your body. You need to just be allowing whatever to happen, to flow, to be at ease. And I think if you are always thinking, you aren't in a state of ease, you aren't fully trusting yourself, because you feel like you have to use your mind to decide how to show up in the world and how to behave. Biggest issue this shows up in, I would say, is social anxiety. Social anxiety. You are always trying to figure out what's the way that I should behave in this situation. What should I say? What should I do? And because of that, you just aren't going to have at that pleasant experience, and people are going to be able to tell it as well, maybe just a little bit. It depends how sensitive they are, but it's going to change how you behave in a micro way. But what if you could just allow yourself to behave however comes out? That's the path of meditation, right? To meditate is to silence your mind. People think it's just something you do during meditation, and I think that can be a misconception. You can do it just in meditation, but I think the real benefit is when you allow the presence to take over your life in all areas. And maybe Christianity, they might even call this giving yourself up to God. Allowing God to act through you, allowing God to control you. So in one of the Gospels, they talked about giving up your anxiety. Do not be anxious. In a sense, give that up to God. Which is the same thing you could say as giving it up to the universe, because simply this God is this characterization of this character almost, which we are using in the sense to help us relate to it better, relate to the world and our experience better through the lens of a character, whether that be Jesus or God or something like that. You don't actually have to think of it like that, because the path to meditation or higher consciousness is very secular, or can be very secular. It doesn't have to be. And so you're feeling some anxiety that's really coming from a fear that you aren't fully trusting yourself. So you're not fully trusting yourself, not letting things unfold as they are. But to move into higher consciousness, it's about realizing you can actually perform everything that you do in this everyday life without the thinking mind. So you can be in a state where you aren't thinking so much. You can do that when you are talking. You can try that when you are talking. You can try that when you are behaving. You can try that in all sorts of circumstances. So you can be in a thoughtless state. And I think that's where your experience starts to improve, because you aren't always trying to think. And so getting back to my original point, when I was walking through the park, I was reminded of old patterns I used to have, where when it was about anything in my life, there would be this internal narrator or monologuer that would be thinking, I have to figure this out, I have to plan it out, I have to analyze it, I have to know every dimension of it, I have to be on top of it, I have to really have a deep understanding of it. This can be very useful, and we are very conditioned from the education system to be this understanding, analyzing machine. But ultimately, this pattern is a pattern that you have formulated in childhood, and the pattern results in you always being in your head. And the pattern is actually a fair pattern. It's a fair pattern. What it's really coming from is your desire to control every variable, every set of circumstances, control everything you can possibly control in order to retain that mental stability that you desire, that mental stability the ego desires, because part of it is afraid. What do you do when you're afraid? You try to understand everything as well as you can in order to feel that inner sense of security. Oh, what if I fuck up? What if I do the wrong thing? Well, if you think of every single possibility to ever exist, it's probably less likely going to fuck up, right? That's what your mind thinks. But have you ever noticed that, what you think would happen? Or like, let's say you are thinking of like, oh, what do I say in a situation? And you really mentally rehearse it. Have you ever noticed that when you actually start speaking, what you say is like completely different? Or even if it is similar, like if you're speaking the mentally rehearsed words, it just doesn't sound as good as if you just allow your voice to just come out however it needs to come out. So this idea of like we need to plan everything out, it's a really fair-based pattern. It took me so long to realize this. You don't have to always be thinking and figuring things out. You can just be and allow. That's what they talk about in all these like meditation gurus. They're talking about being and allowing and just being present, and you're like, what the hell are they talking about? And you don't realize the nuance is really, hey, it's these patterns that we have of control or whatever. That's a great benefit of moving out of those patterns and moving into that beingness that they speak of. Something that took me a long time to realize as well. So yeah, I hope you learned something. Let me know what you think.